hit the wrong button. Okay, here we go. I think they have 60 seconds now before they join us. I hit the stop record button, so now I'm going to end up with 2 different files to figure out.
Okay.
Anything else we want to say in the time that we have left? I think something. Okay, are we back?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll come in and we're missing Katie. Awesome. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again, and feel free to screenshot the page, take a picture of the slide, whichever you would like to do. But I want you guys to remember this as what you were talking about. So I'm imagining in the shame and self-doubt, there were some kind of like identity pieces that may have been coming up. And I want you to remember that God is your provider and not your ministry partners. And so it is really hard when you are doing MPD in the beginning to not make it about you. So that's kind of the place that we were ending in our room, is when you're making an ask, you're thinking about your account and you're thinking about your ability to be on campus. And it's kind of very you-centric. And kind of going back to what John was sharing last week, the center of the story is not us, it's the Holy Spirit. It is God at work in the lives of our ministry partners, in the lives of our students, and in our lives to bring the kingdom of God to where we are sent. And so he is the one that will provide for the entirety of the story. And so when you are inviting people to give, you are asking the Lord to move on their hearts to give according to the ability that they have. Also, you and your ministry are worth supporting. And so because God is the center of the story, he is going to support the people that are going out to bring kingdom to where they are called. And so if you are thinking about, am I good enough, or am I trained enough, or do I know enough? Even in the secular fields, people take risks and take jobs or have opportunities opened up to them, and they might not be fully qualified, but someone sees their potential and someone is willing to invest and grow them. And so even if you see places where you feel like I could be a better evangelist, or I could be a better Bible study leader, that's fine. See it as God seeing that and wanting to invest in you, and you're worth supporting, you're worth investing in, you're worth growing, you're worth being trained. And so don't disqualify yourself because of what you think you aren't, or what you feel like you're not good enough in. Also, following Christ's call will lead to healing, blessing, and empowerment. And I missed the D. I just put in empowerment, and empowerment. And so those are your expectations, not just for you, but for your ministry partners. When you are making asks, you are praying that people are hearing from the Lord and saying yes to him and giving. And so that means that they have access to healing and blessings and empowerment when they are listening to the Lord and being obedient. Now, not every ask will end in a yes, and that doesn't mean the person's being disobedient because they've said no. Maybe the Lord's just not leading them to give to you. But even still, there is that opportunity to receive healing, blessing, and empowerment for both you and for your ministry partners. And lastly, we are called to both honor Jesus and our parents, but that's also quite difficult. And so even in coming on staff and my parents actually saying to me, we did not send you to college to beg for money. That was really hard to hear, but I knew very clearly what the Lord was saying. And so I asked, as well as someone could from a high power distance family, I need y'all to honor this because this is what the Lord is saying to me. And it took them about 2 years to say, wow, like we have seen the kingdom of God come through you, how it has changed you, and the testimony that has come from the work you are doing. So if you keep holding on to the story, your parents will actually begin to see the faithfulness of God and the call that you've said yes to. So hope you guys screenshot that. Gonna move to the next piece. How are we doing? Do you guys need a break or are we good? Just give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Awesome sauce. Okay. So then we'll keep it moving. So we also, as part of your homework, spirituality of fundraising. So the Now an article, I'm trusting that you all have read. And so I want us to talk about that for a little bit, but I want to highlight Kristen's. Everyone else kind of put a quote that was similar, but Kristen's was very different on Basecamp, the quote that she liked from the article, which was, I asked for money standing up, not bowing down, because I believe in what I am about. I believe that I have something important to offer. And so, Kristen, if you don't mind, I would like you to share just a little bit more about why that really stuck out to you. Because everyone else kind of like was swimming around the same quotes. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. I really liked that quote. I think it was a shift that I've had to make as I think about fundraising. Because I think like kind of the culture that I was raised in, like it's not really kosher to talk about money or to even really ask for money. And I think I definitely felt that the first couple times I would have to like fundraise for something. I would be very like kind of, well, you should be humble in it, but like I felt a little bit of shame in asking for it. Like I was burdening someone. But through like conversations with my staff and like looking at scripture and God has really helped me to see that like when you're fundraising, like you're inviting someone into something and it is something to be proud of. And I just love the way that it was phrased when I saw that quote. So I wanted to use it.
This thing just told me I was muted. So thank you, Kristen, for sharing that. I really like what you were sharing in terms of the culture and like changing your perspective. So I have a question. I have two questions overall about the article, but my first one is, what was most surprising to you about the points in Nowen's article? So what did you find like that stood out or was like shocking or like, oh, like kind of paradigm shifting, as Kristen was sharing about her quote? So what were some of the points?
I think one that I thought was interesting was a lot of the passages about, well, so like, I mean, the whole themes, like a lot of themes were about seeing it as ministry in a place of conversion. But that was interesting how he spoke about rich people. And he said, don't see them as like money bags, but also like you seeing them as people, not going in judging them or having like certain expectations, but just going in like with any other ask and seeing them as people in a place where you can get to minister as well. Like I really like that story where he's talking about his friend, I think he was a banker, and like all the things he learned through him and how he was also able to minister to this man. I think it's really interesting. I've heard a lot of stories like that, like in my life and from Christians I know, and just an interesting perspective, because I think I can do that too sometimes, where I'll get like judgmental and be like, well, what the Bible says, and it's like, all right, well, you don't know exactly what God's doing for this person and through this person. And so I really appreciate that part of the article. It changed my mind on a few things. It was challenging.
Anyone else like to share points that stood out to them from the article?
So I was gonna say, I think sometimes I forget the idea of when you're inviting somebody to partner with you financially, they're also being challenged too, and how they're partnering with the kingdom and how they're seeing the kingdom and how they're seeing Jesus and other people. And so in our breakout session, I was talking about how it's very hard for me to ask my community for money because I come from a community that doesn't really have a lot of funds. And so they're eager to say yes. And so it's just like, you don't have a lot, but you're eager to say yes. So it really has like shaped how I see giving. And it's not about how much that you have, but it's if you're having a heart transformation to be willing to partner with somebody so that they could be on campus, for us as staff workers. So yeah, I really like that idea of, just other people being challenged too. Like, we're not the only ones being challenged in this. Like, the people who are partnering with us are being challenged as well.
I really liked how no one used the concept of freedom. And I thought it was just very eye-opening to me, especially considering, like, if your security is fully in God, you should feel free to ask anybody for anything that, like I was talking about in our breakout group, knowing that God is the main character and not. But if you put your full security in God instead of money and instead of people's responses to your requests, then you should be free to ask and free with whatever response, whether it's a yes or a no.
Rachel, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
Oops, sorry. I was thinking the freedom, like the concept of freedom. I think because that's what especially in identifying with the feelings of like shame or self-doubt, it helps me to like identify within myself the feelings of like not having freedom, or, I don't know what a better word would be for that, but just like the grip maybe that like money or asking for money or the culture I was raised in has on me. And so reading that article, and I don't know exactly, I think one of you quoted the quote that he said about like when you're free from money, you can ask for it freely or something like that. And that struck me. Yeah. So a lot of what Katie said, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you all for sharing. That was really, really thoughtful. For the other part of your homework, you all also read an article from Knowing Yourself in MPD. And I think, if I remember correctly from base camp, all of you, except for Serena, read the women one, right? Knowing Yourself as a Woman in MPD. Am I correct? Okay. No. Which one did you?
Knowing Yourself as a white staff.
Okay, thank you. So I would love to just hear some feedback, a little bit from you guys, trying to also keep us on time. Let's see. Let's do it like this. John, I want to do breakout rooms again. And this time, the breakout rooms will last for 10 minutes. And can we do Kristen, Savannah, and Katie in a breakout room? And then myself and Serena, and then you and Rachel. And we can discuss the Knowing Yourself in MPD article. So we'll have 10 minutes to unpack that. In your 10 minutes, I want you to share about the main takeaways from the article. So how did you feel like it was applicable to you? What is something that you would like to implement in your MPD journey? And what strengths in the article do you identify with the most? So those are the takeaways. If you want to mention something else, feel free to do so. But I want you to take some time to kind of get in the weeds about knowing yourself in MPD. If you want to unpack the Now article just a little bit more, feel free. I feel like we kind of really rushed through that. And there was not actually much time given for that. But I want us to definitely get to the Knowing Yourself in MPD, because that gets kind of in the background of how we may be thinking culturally or from our own gender. So 10 minutes. Is that good, John? Yep.
you hear me? All right. Think I did that right.
Okay. I couldn't hear you for a second, but we're good now. I can hear you now. Okay.
So it's 7:58. So at about 8:07. I need to make sure I give a little 60-second
Okay.
thing.
Sounds good.
Let me go ahead and pull that article up here. I don't have it.
Mhm.
So you read the Knowing Yourself as a White Staff? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
What prompted you to read? I'm just curious. What prompted you to reach for that one? Did it seem the most applicable to you, your identity, or
It just has been like over the past couple years, I don't know, that's been a pivotal part of like my just growing and understanding of like crossing cultures and multi-ethnicity, like learning about my culture and my identity. And I've never read or learned anything about like ministry partner development, obviously within the context of being white. And so I was just interested about it. And I also have like family members and friends who come from different cultures that I'll probably be like in contact with during MPD. So I thought it would probably be helpful to understand like where I'm at before jumping into it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you do you happen to identify with anything more specific than white? Like, do you have a strong connection to whatever European culture your ancestors might have come from, or
The dominant one that my family knows of and that like we have traditions of is Finnish and Italian. So
you said Welsh?
Finnish and
Finnish.
Italian.
Okay.
Also are Welsh, but we don't have like, I don't know. I just don't, there's not as many obvious things or connections to like that ethnicity as our family has to like Finnish.
Yeah. Cool.
And it,
I think you're further along in that than most of us are. I mean, a lot of people, they might know kind of that their ancestors came from Germany or Scotland or something, but really no understanding of what that means, or not really any connection to current day practices in their family that might actually stem from their heritage in ways that they don't even realize,
Right.
Yeah. Cool. One other question about your white identity development. Have you experienced clashes since you've been a part of InterVarsity about
in like what context?
Well, like I know that whenever conversations around racial justice come up, oftentimes white people, we feel attacked, kind of, or like to blame for a lot of the way that like our Black fellow students or colleagues feel, or to a lesser degree how maybe Latinos or Asians in our networks feel. And I was just curious if you've been part of those conversations.
Specifically with other white people?
Yeah. Well, in the context of racial justice conversations.
Right. That I'm having with like other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot with my own family, which has been pretty negative because I come from a super conservative, completely white family.
Okay.
But I don't know, since being in university, that's been something that like I personally felt those feelings at first of like attack and feelings of like wanting to, snap back and defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
But since, I mean, growing from that, I have had those conversations with other fellow students actually, because at Grand Valley we did the Beyond Colorblind series, like that's a large group series. So
Great.
that opened up an opportunity with other students, which is super interesting. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's interesting. I'm just curious because, I've been on the journey myself for a long time. And I guess I thought I was further along than I was, but a year and a half ago, I went to this urban projects directors orientation out in Oregon, and heard all this stuff that people were saying, and I was like, I went through all the stages of like defensiveness, and I realized that wow, it's okay that I'm that a lot of my Black colleagues are really angry and hurt by white people, and it's not helpful for me to invest all my energy trying to prove to them that I'm like a safe person for them, because in some ways I'm guilty by association, and so whether they trust me has to happen on their kind of timeline and not
not our like defending ourselves.
Yeah. So like I thought, wow, like I just blinders came off on my eyes, and in my understanding of things that week in a really powerful way. And it was only like a year and a half ago. So
right.
I run into young people like you guys that are already having those conversations and thinking about those things. It's really exciting to me. So cool. Well, what stood out to you about like the strengths and the challenges? Do you see any of those things being true in your own life here?
Yes, definitely. I think I guess all of the strengths, like I very much identified with, like self-determination, strong work ethic, and individual significance. Like I think that all comes from my family culture and how I was raised like into those things, to believe like I had to be those things to be successful. And I feel like those can be challenges in themselves, honestly. Like as I was reading it, I was like, I feel like I felt how this like works against me in some ways. So I'm like interested to see how that plays out in MPD. And familiarity with fundraising culture. I've fundraised, I think 3 other times, not nearly as much money as like MPD for staff, but yeah, my family and myself are familiar with fundraising in that culture. So I think that's a good thing. And I liked the first challenge a lot. The first challenge, talking about the purpose of communication. And I very much do relate to that. And I have a hard time navigating that, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like we like almost every conversation you have with someone who's not super close to you, there's an element of like an agenda, kind of.
Like we're here to get something out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think especially in our northern states, like when I lived in Tennessee years ago, there was more of, you start every conversation with 10 minutes of making small talk before you finally get around to but yeah, white, northern, time-oriented people.
Yeah.
Definitely a thing.
And I hate small talk. I identify with that a lot. Like
it's so hard
I
for
recognize that about myself. Yeah. And probably because I am like a time-oriented, schedule, like structured kind of person. So I think those will be challenges for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and set the minute thing here. So yeah. Anything else on the challenges list that kind of like that's me.
Right. maybe not so much like this is me, but it sparked like my curiosity more than like anything else in this article to, I don't know, just like learn more about how white people can relate well to other cultures and ethnicities.
Mm-hmm.
Because that little bullet in the challenges says like many white people grow up in a homogenous community and learn how to, okay, I can, but yeah, that one.
Sure.
Not all back, sorry. Okay, gang's all here. Okay, so I would love for us to share what we talked about in our breakout rooms. So you don't have to do anything long. It could be like a 1 minute or less recap of like, this is what we hit on when we were talking about knowing yourself in MPD. And so just to get the ball rolling, Rachel, since you are holding it down in your room, can you just share with us kind of briefly what you guys talked about?
Yeah, this is hard to make brief, but I'll try. I guess firstly, like I wanted to read the article because of just like what my own journey has been in understanding what is like my identity and what is my white culture. And so reading through this article, like I related a lot with characteristics I feel like I already knew about, like tendencies within white culture in myself. So like direct communication, definitely, time and schedule oriented. And John and I talked about like the often in communicating with people or conversations or meetings or whatever, there's like this need of, or this like hidden agenda, or like I'm here to get something out of this. Like we're not really just, this isn't for the purpose of just building relationship, but like exchanging information. Definitely relate with that and understand how that could be a challenge. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Serena, do you want to share from our group?
Yes. So what I shared with Jasmine was, and it was what I already shared earlier, but just the idea, especially in the Black community within Youngstown, so money is very scarce here. There's a lot of urban injustice here. And so asking for money and knowing that most people will say yes because they see the vision, I'm worried about, again, like, would they be able to take care of themselves and things like that. So I have that extreme end. And on the other hand, which is more within my family, it's just like, Serena, what are you doing? So like I have plans to relocate as well. And so it's like all my plans that I have is kind of like the nervous phase. Like, are you sure? Like, is that going to be helpful for you? Are you going to be well taken care of? So those were the things that I was going back and forth with. But I also told Jasmine that I'm at peace with the decision that I've made. And so I'm hopeful about the direction where God is leading me into.
Thank you so much, Serena. Okay, and Savannah, I'll make you the spokesperson for your group. Can you tell me what you ladies talked about knowing yourself in MPD as a woman?
Yeah, so we were talking about kind of both sides of it. We were saying that some of it was tricky going through the article because it seemed like there was a lot of generalization of like black and white, like this is what women do, this is what men do. But I think we also talked about there were some of the strengths that some of us resonated with, like, excuse me, I'm losing the word right now, but we were talking about, I know collaboration was one of the ones that some of us were thinking of. I think the one that we all agreed on was, I don't know why I'm so fried right now, but, oh shoot. There we go, thank you. We were talking about, yeah, those strengths and like really I think coming into them and realizing that's something that we do have to offer going into fundraising. And does anyone have anything more? Because I feel like I missed a bunch.
I feel like that was a pretty good summary. But yeah, we also kind of just talked about how we're doing in general with MPD once we finished with the articles. So we covered a lot.
So I would love to know if anyone doesn't mind sharing how you're doing with MPD. Yeah, since you guys talked about it, if you feel comfortable in this space.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We talked about like the ups and downs of both, but we talked about how it's good to transition into fundraising with something like this and to just kind of mentally prepare us for what we're getting ourselves into this summer. But also how we wish that this could have been in person, and we kind of think it would have been valuable to have the face-to-face interactions and be able to genuinely build relationships with each other before going into this together. Those were a couple. Can you guys remember others? I think those were the main ones.
I would, yeah, and just for me, like the almost feeling like a little bit of whiplash, like going from like school and then like this new phase of life that I'm entering into, but like trying to finish this college thing that I've been doing for 5 years and stuff. So it doesn't feel like or it feels like there's like an overlap in this transition, and it's not a bad thing, but it can just feel a little bit stressful.
Yeah, that part. And I should also just shared, it's kind of challenging balancing a full class out of school and being in season and already starting InterVarsity on top of that. So it's been, the Lord's taught me a lot through it, that's for sure.
Thank you guys for giving that feedback. It's something we value, especially as we're piloting this and wanting to know feedback. So that's really helpful. So thank you for sharing that. Because I know that some of us are having technical difficulties every time I share screen, I will send you the link to a testimony that you guys can watch. Her name is Ashley Moore. And she shares her testimony of how she met God via MPD. So I know that's not on Basecamp, but I think it would be helpful as we're kind of mentally preparing you guys for this, that God does meet people. And there are really crazy testimonies of how God has realigned people's understandings and paradigms concerning MPD. I wanted to share a quote from a guy named Pete Sommer, and that is 90% of all Christian workers admit to experiencing fear in the MPD process. The other 10% are liars. And so I had to laugh when I saw that. So no matter how experienced we are or how used to it we are, there's always that moment of nervousness. So it may wane over time, but there will be different risks that you take. And so even for myself as a person that's been on staff for 9 years, that has coached interns and led MPD parties, there's still a moment for me where I'm like, ooh, do I want to pick up this phone and call this person? Or do I want to have this conversation? And so at some point in the process, we will fear it. It is a reality, and that's okay. That's a common thing that Jesus understands, gives grace for, and helps empower us to move through, even if we're fearful. So even in the MPD process, most of us will experience a complex of mixed emotions that range from excitement, shame, and sheer terror, literal sheer terror. And these emotions are often anchored in both conscious and unconscious perceptions of reality. And so as people called according to God's promises, it's important that we walk through these emotions and perceptions in light of God's word. And so some of these things will be on the surface while others will be less obvious. As you're going through this process, stuff will come up and you're like, I can name this today. And about maybe 3 weeks in, you're like, and I've noticed this whole back door, back closet of emotions or things that I'm thinking or feeling. That's okay. MPD is going to bring that up in you. And so we know that as we're teaching and preparing you, some things you will get, it'll be taught, other things will be caught. Like some of you will intuitively pick things up, and some of you, as we're going through training, will have lots of questions, and that's fine as well. So it's a process overall that takes time, but it is time well spent, because it results in a spiritual growth that will not only empower you, but it'll also empower your ministry partners, and actually in turn it help you empower your students. So I am believing that God will meet us powerfully as we're going through this journey with you guys in doing MPD. So the last little bit of time, I want to talk about a personal intercessory team, aka a pit crew. So to cast a little vision for a pit crew, my first couple of years on staff, I was chronically low funded. So it was either 50% or less. I had an area director who was helping me out and making sure that I was getting paid, and it was great, but my funding was still super low. One of the things that I did not have in those first couple of years was a pit crew. I was essentially like getting stuff done, doing what I was told, and getting very discouraged. And I really didn't see things turn around until I had an intercessory team. And so that included my supervisor, another person on staff, my coach, both of my best friends, a roommate, and I think it was somebody else, that were literally intentionally interceding and asking the Lord to provide, or asking asking the Lord about my posture. So when I had my interns and I was coaching my interns, we would spend the first hour of our day interceding. And I was like, how should your posture be as you're calling X amount of donors or making, these cases or stuff like that. And so intercession is a necessity. So I went from being 50% or lower funded to somewhere been holding steady between 90 to 100% funded. And so that is changing even the narrative of what it means to be Black on staff. And that really comes out of a place of intercession. So I would encourage you, as I'm getting ready to go through these things, that you make this your priority and get your pit crew together like ASAP. Because it not only helps with your funding, but it helps with your attitude towards MPD. These are the people that will encourage you along the way. And so here are some things that you should be thinking of for your pit crew. I hope you're writing this down. It should be between 3 to 5 people. It could be more if you want, but you want it to be manageable in terms of following up and asking them what they heard from the Lord in prayer. So think 3 to 5 people that will be willing to pray for you in your MPD process. And these people should be people that you can be completely transparent with. So if you're like, I had a really crappy day, or I should have been doing MPD today and I didn't, even though as coaches, we want to make sure you are doing it. You want people that you can be real with. Like, I could not get out the bed today. Like, I just did not want to do it today. Or I had a really awesome day and I want to celebrate that with somebody. You want people that you can be completely transparent with, like you can show your ugly to, even when this happens. Then the second thing is you want people who actually enjoy and regularly practice the discipline or the gift of intercessory prayer. And so you just don't want to ask a friend because they're a friend. You want to ask a friend that prays. Like in the Black church, we say we had a praying grandmother, like somebody that that actually goes and prays. So that could be your grandmama, it could be an aunt, it could be a friend, but they regularly practice the discipline or the gift of intercessory prayer. So those are the 2 most essential qualities: someone you can be completely transparent with, and someone that actually enjoys or practices the discipline of prayer. The next thing you want to keep in mind with your pit crew is that you should be communicating with them at least once weekly. And so you're sending an email out, like, here are my highs, here are my lows, can you pray this? If you don't know what to pray them, what to ask them to pray for, just say, pray as the Spirit leads. I don't even know. It's been a really crappy week. It's okay. Whatever it is, you don't have to have a perfectly plotted out email. Just some type of weekly communication should be happening. Here are my highs, here are my lows. Pray as the Lord leads, or here's what I need you to pray for specifically. Also, you want to communicate that your pit team is for a specific time. So you can say, hey, can you all agree to be on this team from like May to, let's say, September? So they're covering your summer MPD. Now, if they want to continue past that, that's great. It's just some people work better with parameters. Like, well, you want me to pray forever as you're on staff? Like, I don't know if I can commit to that. But if you just say for the next 3 months or for the next 4 months, would you consider being part of an intercessory team where you will receive a weekly email from me? That's helpful. So communicate, think of a time frame and how you're going to communicate that in the invitation. We recommend that you do that for your entire provisional MPD season. So that's technically May, about Mayish, after you all graduate, to September 1st. So if you want to lengthen it, that's fine. But that's about the time frame of what we're looking at. And there is a handout that they can refer to, which I will send that once I get my hands on it, that they can refer to, where they can kind of read up about what does it mean to be part of a pit crew, and what we are hoping for from them. So do you all have any questions about a pit crew, what it does, or you have someone in mind and you just kind of want to vet now and see if they're eligible? No questions? No. Okay. No questions. Okay. Well, I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to wrap us up. So if there are any comments or anything that comes up, feel free to stop me. I don't mind. So for next week, your homework is to watch the MPD cycle video, and all this will be on Basecamp as well. The next thing is to identify a prayer partner that you can walk through the MPD process with. So this could be your pit crew, just putting together the entirety of your pit crew by next week, or saying I have at least this one person that I know I can pray with for the next couple of weeks until I get my pit crew together. So identify a prayer partner by next week. Also, we would love for you to collect contact info for your prospects, about 1 to 50. Between 1 to 50 on your prospect sheet. And if you don't have that contact info, I think some of you already have it, but if you don't, we would like for you to have it by next week. So collecting that contact info for at least numbers 1 through 50 on your prospect sheet. You can do it however you want. The reason why we ask for this is because at the end of the 7 weeks, we will have you all sending out announcement letters. And so it is better to get the ball rolling on that. So if you have contacted 50 people, but they haven't gotten back to you, that's okay. We just want you at least to get the ball rolling. And so that could be emails that you send out, calls, text messages, however you want to do it. You know, we're not asking for a specific platform. Just that you have initiated contact with at least 1 through 50. So you can have those addresses. So come mid-May, you can just send out your announcement letters. So the next piece is, and you can interview either myself or John about our best and our hard stories about MPD, including how we've experienced God's faithfulness. So John and I will be looking forward to some emails or text messages from you guys about setting up a time to interview us. The interview can be super short. It doesn't have to be anything long. Let us know what you're working with, because I know that, you know, some of Katie's in season and you all are, you know, ramping down from your school year. So we want to honor your time. So it doesn't have to be an hour call like this. It can be very short, depending upon what you need for us. So just communicate your time commitment, and we will work within your schedule. But do contact us about an interview, about our best and hard stories within MPD, including how we've experienced God's faithfulness. So those are your homework assignments. Just a reminder, and maybe show of hands, how many of you already booked your flight for MPD 102? Booked. Okay. All right. Just a reminder. Okay. So just a reminder to book your flights for MPD 102. The sooner the better. I just want to remind you guys, you do get reimbursed for this because, it's a expense from staff. And so make sure that you get that done. If you haven't registered yet, please do register. That will be really helpful for those that are running the conference. That'll be our first in-person meeting. So I do hear you guys when you say it would be great if we could see each other and what that would be like. And that's our first time getting together. So I would really love to be able to share and see that time with you. John, did you want to add anything in this last minute?
I don't think so. I'll just echo though how much we value your feedback on the virtual calls. So because this is kind of, you guys are like our test dummies, and how this goes will determine whether we try it again. So feel free to be brutally honest about what is working and what doesn't work so well. So I know you don't have anything to compare it to yet, but maybe after you've gone through 102 as well, if you can reflect back on 101 and give us some feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, ladies. Well, with a couple of seconds to spare, I will let you go for the night. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Hey, you're muted.
Nice job. That was great.
Thanks. I figured I could go ahead and get your feedback now and send out the email to me.
I loved how much. I loved how you did like another kind of sharing time in the beginning. Like, I think we should do that every time. Like, just a different.
Yeah.
I think slowly people were. They definitely were more open, and contributing on their own right, on their own initiative tonight than they were a year.
Yeah.
I turn off the recording here.
Oh.
Nate doesn't hear feedback and rat us out to everybody. Okay, let me.